Hey everyone, you're going to love this week's episode of The Purpose Matrix. I just got done talking with Dane Espegard, and there's so much value packed in this episode. We talk about the benefits of, when you're younger and growing, doing a direct sales role, the power of your network and why you should surround yourself with people at different levels, whether they're, ahead of you, maybe at your level, or someone that you can teach, and how it just accelerates your growth so much. We talk about his book that he wrote and why dreaming is so important and how dreaming big impacts you and your business, your team, the team that you're leading. We talk about finding small wins and how finding small win, it doesn't need to be the big hit, the home run, but finding small wins and the courage that it builds. And then, we had a really important discussion around how really energy transfers from different areas of life. And we don't have a business life and a personal life, but we have one life. And Dane really digs in and explains what that means. That was really impactful for me. And finally, we talk about leadership, Dane's leadership style, and why and how to be an authentic leader. So a ton of value in this discussion. I learned so much from it. I think you as well. Thanks for listening in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I'm very excited for today's guest, Dane Espegard. Dane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Listeners, we have a treat today. Dane, a very impressive background. First of all, comes from the Cutco Knives family and now runs the largest team, set the record for most production in the history of Cutco, which if you know anything about Cutco Knives and their systems and what they do, that is an extremely, extremely impressive feat. So congratulations on that. But in addition, founder of Dream Vault, culture created, dream achiever, author of an amazing book called The Dream Machine, which I recently read and I just have it marked up and earmarked and all kinds of things. We're going to get into that more. Before we get into the book or kind of your like what you're doing now, bring us back a little bit, Dane. Tell us just high level your story and what brought you to where you are today.
Sure. Excited for the conversation. I got my professional start at 18 with Cutco, like many others, and straight into direct sales. Did that for 4 years of college, and then upon graduating from UW-Madison, saw Cutco as a viable career option. So I stayed with Cutco, started learning how to build teams and open up different territories as a district manager with Cutco. So I did that in the Milwaukee area, then moved to Omaha, Nebraska, then moved to Minneapolis. And so in that process, had the opportunity to start and grow 3 teams from scratch. And, while I was doing that, was also reading a bunch of personal growth books and, trying to develop myself. And so each time that I started a new team, was taking lessons from the last team that I started in terms of what I liked and what I didn't like. And one of the things that stuck with me was the dreams concept from a conference where I had the opportunity to hear Matthew Kelly speak. And then I plugged that into our core DNA as I started the new team in Minneapolis in 2013. And that's still the team that I run now. So I oversee a 6-state area for Cutco that's headquartered out of Minneapolis. And the success there is giving me the autonomy and the ability to pursue other things as well. And so in the last decade, I've been investing in mobile home parks and writing this book and launching the SaaS product, and all while having a bunch of kids. I shouldn't say a bunch, having 3 kids. So that's a little background on where I've been at.
Congratulations! And how are your kids?
I've got an 8, 6, and almost 2-year-old, all girls.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. We have 5. I'm 14, 11, 9, 7, and 5, 3 girls and 2 boys. So,
okay.
Yes, it is chaos at our house like it is at the Espegard house, I'm sure. So
yes. You
talked about a lot there. I want to, I don't think we've talked about this. So Cutco, direct sales, and the experience, not kind of 2 parts. One, the experience someone, especially younger, thinking about what they want to do, and the direct sales experience and what that taught you. That's the first thing. The second thing is the network of Cutco and the association that you're around. I think those are 2 separate but very powerful things as a young person to learn and grow. Can you tell me about those 2 things a little bit more and the value it provided you?
Yeah, direct sales is such an amazing opportunity for anybody, but a young person specifically, to just kind of cut their teeth and develop skills with tons of opportunity for success and failure. And so, with Cutco, it's a lot of people think it's door to door. It's not door to door, but it's, doing face to face or virtual presentations. And, it involves making phone calls, and the student manages their own schedule, and, they're their own boss. They have to learn how to grow and develop skills. And there's a lot that goes into it. But I think that at the core, it gives people the opportunity to have an arena for all of the personal growth that they may want to do. So for me, Cutco introduced me to personal growth. I didn't grow up, being fed, Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and, books like that. And so once I got to Cutco, I was excited about the competitive nature of, entrepreneurship and sales and being able to earn more based on my effort and my performance. But then mix into that a totally different mindset. It allowed me to fail a bunch, but be really excited about it. And I think that's the difference. There's a lot of students that will want to listen to a great podcast, and but to actually put yourself out there, make phone calls, be uncomfortable, get rejected over and over again, and learn how to, tweak the script, or go get some coaching from somebody who's a little more senior or experienced than you. Like, those are the things that I think really make Cutco special in terms of an opportunity for a young person.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of advancement opportunities that they have. So it's not just one position, but while I was learning sales as a student, I was also in their management program. So I was learning how to lead, and I was learning emotional intelligence and crucial conversations. And so that was my college. I went to UW-Madison, but I learned far more, doing the management program through Cutco than I did, through UW-Madison.
And I have a couple of things that would go there, but how strong, not just so direct sales, you talked about the Cutco, like personal development system, if you will, but how strong is the network there? Like the people you're around, and, they're all around personal development. You're seeing them at different levels in growth. How important was the network, and even what was their strategy, or how do they leverage the network of the other, employees or contractors, however it is structured?
Yep.
How do you leverage that network there?
Yeah, so the network is fantastic, and the way that they set it up is very successful, and call it genius, if you will, for what they need. And at Cutco, one of the things that makes, I think, so successful for a bunch of young individuals is that everything is standardized. So they have scripts and great training and all these things that are very easy for somebody with no experience to plug into. The next piece of that, though, that network, when I was going through, and when anybody's going through it, there's tons of people that are, one level above, at the same level, and one level below. And I say levels, it's not a multi-level marketing thing, but what I mean by that, and I'm sure anybody who's into personal growth knows, the sweet spot for most people are when they're learning from somebody, learning with people, and also having the opportunity to teach what they're learning to other people. And so even as a student, I had people that were a year or two, maybe more advanced in the business, that I was learning from, that wasn't a 50-year-old old school, but it was a young person that had energy that I was learning from. And then I had other people at my stage, if you will, that I had camaraderie with to go through the personal growth with. I had my college friends, and when we got together, we drank a bunch of beer and talked about who could drink more. Right. And then I had my Cutco friends, and the conversation there was, how much, what are you earning? How much are you saving? Are you investing? And totally different worlds that I was living in, and I was straddled between the two. And then I also had the opportunity to coach other people, whether they were older or younger, didn't matter, but newer in the business. And so it was neat, because Cutco does that for the entire time somebody is with the business, that they're always in that stage where they're learning from, learning with, and teaching to. And I think that's what makes it really special.
Well, I love that, and I love the importance of the different levels and surrounding yourself with people that, a lot of times we talk about surrounding yourself with people that you can learn from. Mm-hmm. That's what we tend to focus on. There's 3 different levels there that you pointed out, and I think that's really important for people. Yes, surround yourself with people you can learn from. We're not saying don't do that. Of course, do that. And Dane said that. However, also peers that you're learning from and like helping each other out a lot. But find people you can mentor, you can teach, you can coach, and the pace of learning. When there's stats on this. When you listen to something versus read something, but your understanding of things when you're learning for the intent of teaching exponentially grows. So if you have relationships, if you have a team at work, wherever it is that you're helping and mentoring, you're going to learn more and retain that much more because of it. And you'll learn from the conversations you have as well. So I really like that you added that. I wanted to jump to something you said earlier about the sales, and I want to use it as a transition to talk about the book a little bit. But you said, you build up this courage because you're just, not just phone calls, using the system and failing over and over again. And first, I assume that process helps you build up a lot of courage that then over the course of your life, even you took on, I'll say bigger, more courageous things, bigger risks, whatever it might be. But the other part of it that you talk about in the book is we think of courage like doing this huge thing. Yeah. But you talk about in the book, small things, small steps, big results. Tell me more about that and even how you learned that. And then I want to talk more about the book as well after that.
Yeah, I think that, the idea of small steps and big results, it's, most of the things that we could look at in life, if we have, a very proud accomplishment or something that we've done, it typically wasn't one swing at the plate, right? It was a whole bunch of little things that added up to that. And maybe it was one last swing that made the difference, but it was the culmination of all those things that got us to that spot. And so, one of the things anybody who's been in sales knows, it's a numbers game, right? So if I want to sell this much, I have to do this many appointments, and therefore I have to make this many phone calls. And, the part of the courage I think that happens is learning how to detach yourself from the emotional side of things. So if somebody says no, hey, I don't care. I'm not taking it. They're not saying no, I don't like you. They're just saying no to what I asked them at that time. And I think the idea of I can pursue these things and be okay hearing no along the way. They're not saying no to what Dane is trying to do with his life. They don't know what I'm trying to do. They just said no to that one question, and who knows what's going on in their life in that moment. And so I feel like when you go through those experiences, you learn to kind of build these, you could call it a coping mechanism. You could call it whatever you want, but I call it, strategies for success of building a box to say, hey, if I really was eye to eye with this person, I think they'd be excited for me, right? But in an interaction, I know how I am when somebody calls me and I'm not expecting if I'm in the middle of my day. I don't have time.
Instant defense, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I think it's understanding, how that goes. But then at the same point, for me, every time that I get a small win, I think I can take a little bit bigger shot. And I don't think that's a me thing. I think that's a normal human nature thing, that when we see some wins on the board, we start to get a little more confident about what we can accomplish. And that could be with real estate, right? I bought my first mobile home park. It was the cheapest one I could find. And, I learned on that. And after that, I was like, I can take some bigger swings at this. And the next one was a little bigger, and the next one bigger after that. So I think, that process is the same for dreaming and the life that we want to live, where it's, hey, if I'm okay with a negative result, because I understand that that's, success is a horrible teacher. Failure is the best teacher that we have, as long as we're eyes wide open to it and understand that it's a process and it's not an end destination. I think that's the mindset that helps people understand those small wins really are what we're after.
Wow. I love that. So first of all, I recently released an episode on detaching from results and focusing on who we are and what we do. And if you can set your goals around what we do and focusing on just, it's a numbers game, as you said. Yeah. By the way, results are worldly results, and they are feedback, and you have a lot of influence on your results. I am not saying we don't have influence on our results. However, don't get caught up in the results. Get caught up in what you can control, how good you are at it. Results are feedback, adjust and adapt, and keep going, right? It's a numbers game. So you hit home with that. So small wins lead to big wins. This concept, let's just talk at a high level about this concept of dreams. So dreams, I talk about purpose or vision or whatever, and all of these can be fluffy, I'll just say, right? Sometimes. So
100%.
Talk to me about that, and I guess maybe even how you define dreams and why it's not a fluffy concept.
So I think it's an and both. I think it absolutely is a fluffy concept. And I even talk a little bit about that in the book, where it's like, I think if somebody is just living in that visionary stage and they're always dreaming with no action, then it is a fluffy topic. But I think that we need to dip our toe over on that side occasionally to be able to get the inspiration, the excitement for what am I doing today? And, call it vision or dreams. I think it's the exact same thing. But the benefit of somebody going through that process, dreaming or visioning or, creating your own purpose, these are those things that aren't taught in school, right? And we're shepherded through education system from sixth grade to seventh grade to eighth grade. And nobody says, hey, Phil, what do you really want to do in eighth grade? It's just, no, you're going to take these classes and then you're going to go to the next grade. And, in the US, it's normal in many communities that when you graduate high school, the question isn't, what are you going to do now? It's what college are you going to? Right. And our hand is held. And if you don't know what you're going to do, you just fall into, I guess I'm going to school. And then once you're done with the education system, most people, that stops. The hand holding stops. And so now it's left to us to say, what do I actually want in life? And for most people, they don't have that skill. Right? We have that skill as a kid. I think it's innate, the idea of dreaming and anything's possible. And, you've got 5 kids. You see that all the time, right? And sooner or later, that slows down. And a lot of times, parents and school systems and society kind of like beat it out of them, where it's, hey, you got to start being realistic, right? That you got to get something that's going to pay the bills. You got to get, and as a parent, it's difficult because we want that for our kids, right? We want them to be successful and not struggle. But at the same time, some of those comments have 2 different sides to them. And so what I think one of the best things for a business to do, a company to do, is to continue to facilitate that process of dreaming for somebody. Because once let's say they're 22 and they graduate college and they enter into a entry-level position at XYZ Corporation. Well, now, who's talking to them about their upward mobility or what they want in life and why they should keep growing? And probably nobody. And unless it's a great business with great culture. And so it usually stops. I've done so many dreams workshops for companies that I can tell there's a 40-year-old in the room that they haven't dreamt since they were 20 years old. And you can tell because it's a little bit more challenging for them, which is okay. And then there's other people that, man, they're like, I can't wait to do this. And so this is no different than any other skill. When we use it, it grows, right? And it gets stronger. And if we don't, we sometimes forget how to do it, or it becomes more difficult. But I don't think, this is the last thing I'll say in this, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think the idea of just going through and brainstorming and saying, Phil, man, what would excite you in life? You don't think about just vocation. It's just, what are the things in life, if you said, wait, I could do that you'd be really lit up by. And the bigger menu that we have, the more opportunity for a fulfilled life that we have, because we can pursue all these different things in different areas of our life.
Yeah. And I think the concept that was eye-opening for me was, I think we just jump as business owners or business managers or leaders in companies, we think, oh, if we have our people dreaming, like they're going to dream about not being here or other things, right? And you talk about, all employees are temporary. I want to talk about that. But before that, I want to why or how big thinkers, big dreamers help companies. You talk about that in the book. So tell me why I shouldn't worry and be like, this is also a difference between a limited mindset or scarcity mindset and abundance mindset, right? As a manager, as an owner, as a business leader. And I think a large majority of companies, of organizations, have a scarcity mindset around employees, and they don't want them to dream or think big. Tell me why they should change their mindset on that.
Yeah, it's the whole proactive versus reactive, abundance and scarcity, and it's all of that. And when you don't facilitate the dreaming, so by the way, who's the best at dreaming? It's typically your top 20% performers. So if you're not asking your people and enabling your people to really do that, the people that suffer the most is that top 20%, which is the people that we want to keep most, right? That we're most excited about. And it's usually a fear-based thing. Well, hey, if they dream and I say to them, where do you see yourself in 10 years? They're probably not going to say in the same position working on your team and your company. They might say, well, I want to start my own thing but so what happens is that if we don't provide that vision of or facilitate them coming up with the vision of what is next for them, we're showing an example of fixed, and where you are now is probably where you're going to be in 2, 3, 4 years. this goes hand in hand with a business visioning for themselves to say, hey, team, what could we see as possible this next year? What could we see as, what would be wildly like a wild success for our business? Let's brainstorm what that is. That's the same skill set that it takes to say, hey, Phil, what would be amazing for you in 5 years or 10 years? And so what I find is that when we help the individuals on our team to dream more and work, it also starts to trigger the problem solving tool, right? Because every dream that we have is a problem that needs to be solved. There's a different way of looking at it. But if I have, man, I want to go travel for 6 weeks, but I have a job, right? How am I going to do this? And I've got kids and they have school. That's a huge problem that I have to solve. It's solvable and it's an exciting problem to solve because I chose it. Well, At work, if I'm constantly telling people anything is possible, let's figure out how you can do that thing. Well, now when I bring a problem to you on the team, Phil, it's like, hey, here's the problem. What are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? It's the same language that we're talking about. I noticed this on my team during COVID, where we've been doing the dreams thing for 7 years before COVID. And then when COVID happened, our whole business model from face to face had to get flipped upside down like many other businesses.
Yep.
But that's when it became evident to me that I'm like, my people are just used to solving problems. They didn't get stuck in the mud. They didn't say, oh, we're screwed. They just went to work to say, how can we do this? And they were just used to having that conversation. So I think it teaches and starts to create the problem solving skill set.
Yep. I love that. And just when I read that, I was like, oh, I had thought about this before and like abundance mindset and some of these things. I had not thought about they're creating these dreams, these opportunities, these challenges, and maybe those challenges are personal life related, but they're exercising the muscle of how to solve these problems, which means they're going to start to not only think bigger from a professional perspective, but also be able to handle, solve, address those challenges and, become better problems, like a problem solving mindset, as you said. So I really like that. I want you to hit on the biggest fear, the biggest reason employers, business owners, business leaders are second guessing this though, are that, well, what if, I mean, I kind of joked about it, but what if people want to leave, or what if it impacts the time spent or how long they work here? And you talk about in the book, all employees are temporary employees. And again, it's true. So tell me more about that and help us get over this fear that we have if we help our team members dream.
Yeah, I think, again, that statement of everybody is temporary, it's true. Even if somebody spent 40 years at the business, they're leaving sooner or later. Right. So everybody is temporary, whether that means it's 6 months or 30 years. What I want is I don't want zero turnover. I actually don't think zero turnover is a positive. I think that turnover, there's a healthy turnover, which is some attrition, which brings fresh blood if it's the right person, fresh energy into the team. And then there's also are people leaving the right way, or are they leaving a toxic way? And I think that's a really easy question for people to look at and say, just on their own, and say, let me think about the last 5 people that have left our team. Was it celebrated, or was it swept under the rug and been like, boxed up the things and never to be heard from again? Because how somebody leaves, like if I'm on a team and I see how somebody's treated on their way out, that resonates with me. Right. Yes. And so I don't want somebody who's just stuck. And this is where I think people, because they're nervous to really engage and grow that person, hey, they might leave. Then what happens is they play more reserved. And so when that happens, the team members start to understand that, like, hey, it's okay to be lackluster here. I'd rather have somebody who is alive and on fire for 2 years than somebody who's asleep at the wheel for 5.
100%.
Right? Because 100%. they're going to produce so much more, and the energy that comes from that person, that's infectious. That's what I want on my team.
Yeah. And this strikes a chord with me for 2 reasons. If I go back to the corporate days, first of all, a big part of this is if you have the right systems and the right culture and the right mindset around this stuff, first of all, your retention will be better because of it. It won't be worse. It'll be better. Second, everybody will want to work for you. everyone's going to want to work for you. Who doesn't want to work for a company that says, we're going to help you fulfill your dreams? We're going to help you fulfill your purpose. What is your vision? How can we help you fulfill that? Everybody wants to work for that company. So, and I saw the other side of that, where there was such a fear dominated the mindset and the approach to how retention was approached, and how when people exited, how that was handled. I'll give an example. A buddy of mine has a company in Florida, and he has a marketing girl that works for him. And she was just entrepreneurial and driven and wanted to do her own thing. And he's like, how are we going to help you do that? What can we do? And she went and she started her own marketing company, who works for him and does his marketing work, but she's living out her dream. Like, so there's such a misunderstood mindset that is based in fear that so many companies have, that I think it's just such an important topic. So I appreciate that. So I want to transition and talk about, as we talk about dreams, and I'm sure our listeners are thinking about their own personal dreams, but also then how can we maybe apply this to our team at work that we lead. But you say in the book, we don't have a work life and a personal life. We have one life. So help me. What does that mean? I guess I'll just keep it open-ended. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think, the old traditional style of like, leave your work, at work and leave your home at home. It's like, well, that had been getting blended, I believe, for quite a while anyways. But then when COVID happened and we switched to almost everybody working remote, it's like there was no lines anymore, right? This is it. You're working from home. And so everything is happening at the same time. The part that I think matters the most, though, is we can't ignore, and this is, don't even think about your team, but anybody who's listening that's married, if you have a fight with your spouse, your energy is different that day at work or the next day at work. It just is, right? If you are feeling, if you have some health challenges that you're experiencing personally, your energy is different at work, right? That's just how it goes. If you have issues with your kids, there's all these things where it's impossible for people to just blind that out and say, oh, I'm just going to show up and do my job. I mean, that's probably what they'll do, but their full being and body is not going to be behind it. Right. Yeah. So for me personally, I have this stance where, hey, I want to wake up excited every day and go to bed fulfilled. And if I'm spending the hours, let's just say 9 to 4 on work, right? Well, I've got 3 kids that don't care what happened during my work day. At the end of the day, I can't say, hey, I had a tough day, I'm just not going to parent for the night. Right. So
that would lead to the fight with your wife, right?
Exactly. And so I need to end up at the end of my workday having energy to come home to my kids. And so this is why I think what we do really makes a difference, because, the result of that at the workday, that's who shows up for the kids for the larger portion of what we get with the kids, right? And on the weekend. And so if I can get my people on my team to be more health focused, if I can get them to be focused on bettering their relationships and being a more intentional parent, and I'm not doing the things, I'm just asking the questions and putting it on the radar and saying, it's what we do around here. We're a business of individuals that are leveling up constantly in every area of life. And if that's who's on my team, well, we have one life. They're going to be showing up excited for work, and they're going to be going home excited. And that's who I want on my team, is that, even if it means less hours, because they're pursuing all these awesome things.
Yeah. The comment I wrote down there is energy transfers. Alignment in areas of life matters. Yeah. So like your morning routine, right? Your buddy, your close friend, Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning, right? Check that out as well. But not before the Dream Machine, after you read the Dream Machine. But right, creating energy, wake up excited, go to bed fulfilled. It all translates over. The other thing I've said before, but if you're energized with what you're doing, it does transfer to at home. And if you're doing things at work, or you're creating an environment for your team members at work where they're dreaming, vision, purpose, they're going to go home. You're setting such an example for your kids on how they perceive what they might do when they're older, right? And they're going to keep dreaming. You talked in the beginning of the episode about how this starts to decline in the teens, and as we, parents get all practical in them, as you say. So I just think it translates day by day, and over the course of a long period of time, it also transfers so much. So I appreciate that. The one other topic I want to hit on, and then we'll start to wrap up. But you talk about leadership in the book, and you talk about authentic leadership. What does that mean?
To me, authentic leadership means you're being your true self with your people. And I think that there's, I can only relate this to myself, but growing up, wanting to learn about leadership and kind of trying to figure out what kind of leader I was going to be. At first, I felt like there was this persona that I needed to have to be a leader, right? And it was strong and confident and put together. And then as I was in my 20s and kind of learning and having the opportunity to lead at a young age, I started recognizing like, hey, who are the leaders that I resonated most with? And it was typically the people that were just very real. Because what was I wanting as an individual? I was wanting somebody to lead me in my development. Well, if somebody just shares all their wins and none of their losses and always appears like they have everything together, and first off, nobody is like that. But if that's what we're presenting ourselves as, it's inauthentic. And then what happens to people following that person is, well, I'm not like that person. So, I guess I can't be successful.
Right.
And so for me, I'm constantly talking about all of my personal stuff, not in a way that's braggy or, you should all feel bad for me when we go, like we just had I just shared with my team yesterday. I was like, hey guys, just so you know what's going on, our nanny wrecked our SUV and totaled it. Everybody's okay, but we had that on Friday. And as a result, we had somebody come look at our house, and it's a newer house and there's some issues with the piping, and the quote for it was like $85,000. I was like, so that's what's going on for me. I just want you guys to know we're dealing with it. We're going to handle it. But that's the real life stuff that happens with owning a home, having, cars and possessions, and that stuff happens. But I still need to show up and try and be my best today. And I think that those things allow people to recognize that, oh, he's dealing with stuff as well, but he still tries to show up as his best. Right. And I don't know that that's the right way, but for me, that's always what's resonated when I have had a leader, is that when they're authentic with me and sharing their wins and losses. I think there's a place for a little bit of candor, but that's always what's been best for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think if I think about my growth in leadership over time was definitely putting on the front like I had it all figured out when I didn't, and trying to convey that. And the more I was open and transparent about that and authentic about that, and I was, people talked about like as I learned it a little bit, you're authentic. I think there's so much value in that, and sharing the wins and sharing the losses, right? It's not all the positive on social media all the time. That's not the only thing that's happening in other people's lives. We are all human. We are all having challenges and issues. So just being open and authentic about it. I think it's very relatable, as you said. Yeah. So you talk about going to bed fulfilled, waking up excited, going to bed fulfilled. What are your biggest dreams? What is your biggest dream? How do you think about this? And how are you pursuing that?
So to me, it all comes down to progress. And, I was going to mention this earlier, but I don't know. I don't know that there's a study on this or percentage. I got to believe it's darn near close to 95% of the workforce is not doing a job. Their day-to-day job is not something that they were called to do, right? I think that's a luxury that after time, somebody can maybe find themselves in that. But I've been at a knife company for 22 years. Phil, there's no part of me as a student that was like, man, if I could only find a knife company, I'm just so into cutlery. And, that's not the case. But why am I still here? Because the job allows me the ability to pursue my dreams and a life of my dreams.
Yes.
And so as long as I'm seeing progress on a daily basis on the current dreams that I'm pursuing. And that could be, hey, I'm hitting some sales targets. I'm hitting some development targets. My fitness is improving. So therefore I'm able to go and pursue this other dream. If I'm seeing progress in those areas, I'm fulfilled, right? I don't know where I think I heard it at Tony Robbins' conference. I'm sure he didn't, come up with the quote, but just as simple as day, progress is happiness. And I think about that all the time, that it's not that end destination, even with dreams. It's not, oh, we accomplished the dream. It's the whole process of it. It's the research, the commitment, the daily work on it. And so I've got a ton of dreams. My list has over 400 dreams on it. It's always growing. Each year I probably cross off 20 or so dreams that are on my list. And I don't, my list will continue to grow. So there's not some like one big one. It's a whole bunch of different things that are on there that just keep lighting me up. And so as long as I'm on fire, my kids are getting the best version of their dad. And I think that's, that's what I'm after.
Yeah. I love that. You talk progress is happiness. And I think for our listeners to think about, okay, it's like, I'm just not where I want to be, right? There's a book, The Gap in the Gain. Like, I'm just not where I want to be, or I'm not where I need to be. And it's stop comparing yourself to other human beings. It's where are you at? Recognize that, and I'll use numbers to make it easier to understand. Like if you're a level 2, work on getting to a level 3. If you're a level 5, work on getting to level 6. Don't say, hey, I'm a level 2 and that guy's a level 5. I need to be more like that guy or that gal. That's not what it's about. It's keep making progress over perfection, which I like that concept in personal life and in business, right? Work on just making progress, getting better every day. So I really appreciate that context from you. I want you to just step back and reflect. If you think about what you're doing, you said you have the opportunity to, you're leveraging knives and what you've learned there to have a huge impact in so many different ways. You have a phenomenal book that you've written. You're doing some exciting things with programming around that we'll talk about. But if you step back and reflect, how does what you do, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I love it. I feel great when I think about, how I spend my time. And my role now I'm not out there selling knives individually. And so what I get to do now is mentorship and leadership. And those are things that I know I'm making a difference in individuals' lives, even if they're only with me for 2, 3, 4 months. I feel that I empower people to choose sometimes a more difficult path that they're going to be excited and alive for as they pursue. And I also, especially when I get to do dream stuff, my kids are, hey, what are you doing today? I'm like, I get to teach people how to dream. I don't know that there's a cooler statement that I get to say to my kids than I get to help people dream. And so we do it at home often, but I do feel blessed to have the opportunity that most of the time that I'm spending on my workday in whatever different areas I have, it's typically in some way empowering people to level up.
Yeah. Dane, this has been amazing. I love this conversation. It resonates with me. Like we had, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different conversations. Every single one resonates with me in so many different ways. You're so impactful in what you're doing with the people that you're mentoring and leading. The book has had so much impact. You're going to be impacting you definitely had an impact on our listeners today, an impact on me. So I appreciate it so much. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah. So all the social medias, I'm on there. I think there's only one Dane Espegard on Instagram, Facebook, all that, LinkedIn. And then there's 2 websites that people can go to. One is just daneespegard.com. And then the other one is thedreamsvault.com. And that's the new SaaS product that we launched last year with beta testing. And then this year officially with clients.
Tell me more about that. The Dreams Vault, what does that do?
Yeah, the Dreams Vault is the integration piece for a culture on this. And so when I launched the book in 21, the only product offering that I had for people was, hey, if you want, I'm willing to come in and facilitate a dreams workshop to help your team get going. But I knew every time that I was speaking that it was really just like a steroid shot in the arm. But in a couple of months, they're probably just going to go back to doing whatever they're doing, right? Just like most personal growth things. So there had to be an integration tool. Took me a while because I'm not very tech savvy, but found the right partner. And my partner, developed the Dreams Vault, and we tested it with a handful of companies last year, and it's been awesome. So basically, it's one platform where every employee on a team, it could be a team as large as hundreds to as small as 10. They load their dreams in there, so they have their own section where they can see their dreams and set steps. And there's reminders that will remind them with emails to say, hey, remember you're going to take this action on that dream and stuff like that. Then they can chronicle them and archive some dreams with some photos and stuff as well. There's some cool AI technology that's coming with it. And then on the business owner side, this is what I love. I used to manage my team's dreams with like 50 Google Sheets.
Okay.
Now it's all on one thing. I can click on everybody's. I get updates when anybody takes any action in the Dreams Vault. I could go in and run a report to tell you, hey, we had 200 dreams that were accomplished on our team last year. And so there's some really cool like reporting and stuff that allows me to move my culture faster with it.
Yeah. Amazing stuff, Dane. This is definitely check out the book, The Dream Machine. Check out Dane's websites. We'll put those in the show notes for sure. So
Cool.
If you don't remember them, check them out there. Dane, thanks again so much for the Purpose Matrix. Signing off.